Welcome, everyone. Hello. This is the author wisdom panel, and we're so happy to see all of you. I'm Sherry Reichert-Ballou, and my book is Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the most important people in your life. And today we have Kate and Melisa with us, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And Melisa, why don't we start with you and have you introduce yourself and hold up your book. And if you would, just tell us maybe something that you've been doing to take care of yourself right now during these crazy times.
Sure. Well, thank you. So my name is Melisa Caprio, and the title of my book is Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. So I'm going to hold it up for you guys to see. Yes. So I am an artist and a photographer. That's how I originally started out. So I started the book. I had the idea of creating manifesting postcards, and I have people create the postcards and send them to me, and I photograph them. And when their manifestation becomes their reality, we share my photograph of their postcard along with their story of how it came about, how their manifestation came about. And that's it in a nutshell. I mean, we're going to get more into it as we start talking. So there's there's 30 stories in the book, including mine, how I manifested getting my book published, because that was a big one for me. I made a manifesting postcard, and it was on my gallery wall, which is behind me, for a very long time, that my book was published, and I was blessed to get picked up by Mango. So that's amazing. So yeah, right. So it really does work. And I teach workshops. I teach people how to create manifesting postcards. I also have a radio show. I'm starting with a new format place called Om Times Radio, starting in October. So I invite a lot of other authors, like people that are here today, and other creatives, and people that are doing spiritual kind of work to be my guests, and I interview them, and then I create it as a podcast. So I'm doing that, and I also have gallery shows of my photographs, so that's something else that I do. And I contribute any blogs that I write to Thrive Global, and I have my own blog, and that's what I'm doing. Yes.
Yay.
I know you asked me something else. Oh, what am I doing to take care of myself?
Yes, how are you taking care of yourself, Melisa?
How I'm taking care of myself. So I'm blessed that I can work from home. So I didn't get affected, thank goodness, about with my job, with COVID and everything. So I'm still working from home, so that's good. But the thing that I'm doing to take care of myself, because of not being able to go out and socialize, I was supposed to be in California, actually promoting the book in August, but we had to postpone that till next year. I'm really trying to be conscious of using my creativity. That's sort of my go-to. I started photographing the postcards even more than I was before, and I've been trying to find creative ways to photograph my book. So I've been doing that, and that's just kind of feeding that what I have inside of me, that need to contribute. So I've been doing a lot of that. I've been taking a lot of time for reading. I'm a big reader anyway, so I've gotten so lucky that I've had the time now to even read more books. And I find reading is the great escape for me. I just absolutely love it. So I would say those are the two biggest things I'm doing. I'm trying to be conscious of doing yoga in my house, watching videos. You can find free stuff online, that kind of stuff. And then I'm seeing we have a small circle of people that I am seeing on a regular basis, which is my family. And that's it. Mm-hmm.
Love that. And I'm so glad that you talked just a little bit about creativity. I know we'll be probably bringing that in more today, but just for everyone, it's one of the things I love best about your book, right? Is that it gives us the opportunity. And I do feel like there's such a healing power to creativity. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about your book, but thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, Kate.
Hi. So,
Yes.
yeah, I'll share a little bit about myself and the book, and then what I'm doing these days to take care of myself. Um, Now, Story Power, I should hold it, is just released in June, and it's called Storyteller Secrets to Creating, Crafting, and Telling Memorable Stories. And it is a labor of love. It's something that I had started thinking about 40, 50 years ago. And I'm, as Melissa said, I feel so blessed to be able to come full circle in my life, to come back to what I love the most in my retirement. And I'm also very blessed not to have to work and to depend on pension and, Social Security and just what I have in this very, very expensive city, one of the most expensive cities on earth, to be able to have a little perch here and to continue where I began. So Story Power is all about the art of storytelling, not the writing of stories, but the telling of stories. And one of the challenges I had launching this book and even doing workshops and thinking about how to promote it is that we were no longer able to do live workshops with a live art form. And I know it's just like what do you do with that? And at first, I was really in despair about it, not knowing how to shift from, a live audience with a kind of deep connection that storytelling brings to a virtual environment. And I think it's still a work in progress. And I have to thank Claire Hennessy and 6 Feet Apart Productions, Virtual Storytelling, Sunday Night Stories, for really being a pioneer and looking at how to make a virtual storytelling platform work. I think we have a ways to go with it, but I've been very encouraged, and I think we're all continuing to experiment. And what I would love to do is see a true virtual workshop, so that it's a class that's online, but it's spontaneous, storytelling in the moment, because my stories, with all the themes that are in the book, are really meant for everyone. So it's not just the marketeer, the person branding their business or service, but it's also for mom and dad and parents who are home who want their children not to spend their entire life in front of a screen and tell personal stories. So what I've been doing lately is, as Melissa said, is reading a lot. But also I had begun writing a memoir because it's that time of life. I will be 79 years old next month. And I do feel so very grateful to be active and creative and productive in the last phase of life, as many were not able to be in previous generations. But I started to write my memoir, and I'm doing a kind of experimental kind of memoir. I know the genre. I know how to do scene work and make it work. I also know how to do commentary on that, so there's a second voice. But in addition to that, I'm using elements of folk tales and fairy tales
Love that.
in the actual book. And I've already sent it out to one of the best memoirists in the Bay Area, and she didn't think I'm crazy. So, so I'm encouraged. She really thinks so it's a 3-leveled memoir, and I'm calling it Once. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm also going to be doing online classes with Story Circle Network, which promotes stories for women especially, and using journaling and personal narrative to investigate social justice themes.
Oh, go Kate.
Wow.
Wow.
Love it.
I know. And first of all, I just love how vivacious you are. And when you were talking about, having classes online, I was thinking, that's one of the things you definitely have going for you, right? You just have this wonderful energy and liveliness. And I love that you're working on your memoir during this time. Like we were saying, right? Back to the creativity.
Right.
And, that's so beautiful.
Yay.
Yay. Awesome.
It sounds really exciting.
Good.
Yeah, so welcome to OSHA. We saw you just join in. Glad you're here with us. Hello. So Melissa, let's go back to you.
Sure.
And let's dive a little bit deeper into your book. And, we always sort of leave it up to the authors when they come to the panels, like whatever's top of mind for you that you feel like would be really helpful for people and supportive during this time.
Yeah, so this kind of goes, I talk a lot in the book, and I also, since March, I created a workbook, an online workbook called Manifesting Through Gratitude, and it's a visual journey, and it's 30 days, and it's teaching people how to use their cameras as a gratitude journal, and I break it all down. So I really focus, and yeah, I wanted to create something that people could do at home, right? So what can we do while I know quarantining or staying in, whatever we have to do where we are. So how can we find things to be grateful for? And I talk a lot in the book about gratitude, because I always found that gratitude is the fastest and most powerful way to bring into our lives more of whatever it is we want, right? So when we're hit with everything that's happening right now, how scary it is, people dying and people being sick and losing their jobs and their homes, like so many people are thinking, well, what am I going to be grateful for right now, right? It's a really difficult time. So, and watching the news, forget it. We know, right? Watching the news, that'll just put you in a terrible state of depression. So I wanted to create something, and then I talk about it in the book, and I have exercises in the book, is how can we find small ways, just very small, every single day to find gratitude in our life. And I thought, being a photographer, of course, I go to, what can we visually find that we're grateful for? So I said, everybody has their cell phones. Everybody's cell phone has a camera. Maybe turn a project and learn how to be grateful for something that you already have. Maybe you're in home with your animals. Maybe you can do a 30-day project on them. Maybe you can do a self-love project. You can do self-portraits, or you can photograph, things in magazines, or take screenshots of stuff of things that you want to manifest and create a postcard and send it to me, like all those kinds of things. So I think, and I know I've talked to you about this too, Sherry, I think the two strongest things, and this has been a lifeline for me, is gratitude and for what I already have, and doing mirror work, which I got from Louise Hay, about looking at myself in the mirror, saying kind things to myself instead of criticizing all the time. And those have been the two most powerful things that have shifted my whole life. And I share that in the book too.
Marlena.
Oh, Melissa, I just love what you're doing, what you're writing about. I fully, wholeheartedly believe that gratitude may be the single most powerful thing that can help us to become who we truly are meant to be. And I love that you're providing an avenue for people who maybe don't journal and don't, so often the vehicle, because we're writers and we think in terms of writing and in terms of journaling, journal gratitude every day. Well, for some people that goes nowhere.
Right.
And so I absolutely love that you're providing this for people, and it sounds fabulous and creative and energizing, and yeah. Really.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I know from clients who have sent postcards and stuff or whatever it is, they like, a lot of times people are resistant to things at first until they get into it. And then once people get into that creative space, it's like, it reminds me of when we were kids and we used to play and we would fantasize and we would create worlds and color and do all those things. So I'll notice a big shift in people's energy when they tap into that. And it's called tapping into the creative energy. And it's a very powerful energy, creative energy, because the universe responds to how we feel, not what we say.
And it's
right?
playful. It's playful.
And it's playful. It's
love
playful.
that.
We need more play.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, what can we do while we're stuck? I started it in March when we actually were shut down. So what can we do when we're stuck? You know, we're stuck. Everybody's like, all right. And that's when it kind of came to me. Let me create a little workbook, that people can download. It's 44 pages long. It's a bunch of exercises and tips of things that we can do. Yeah, using gratitude and visual components, gratitude and visual.
Oh, Melissa. Yeah, I'm
Thank
right
you.
with Elena. It's so beautiful. And just even hearing about it, like I already feel a little bit more juiced up to, like just thinking about it, right? Like, and just thinking about visually, like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for that tree right there. Like, it's really lovely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Rachel.
Melissa, I just have to say, I love how the universe works this way, because when someone has an idea and like I have a post tomorrow that's scheduled that goes out about what are you grateful for on what you already have. What do you
Right.
It's already scheduled. And I just love when the universe puts those ideas out there and then has all these people nourishing them. And it's like, that you're aligned with the universe when those kind of things happen.
Exactly, you guys, it's a confirmation that, exactly. It's your confirmation. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Rachel, I love that. I too, it's funny because I have an exercise that I've just been doing with my coaching group called wishing for what you have. And so I think there is also, because a lot of it is that we are surrounded by things we love, and that if we didn't have them, we'd be wishing we had them, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's so beautiful. I could be reminded every day. So yeah, thank you both for that.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go back.
Sherry, wishing for things we have. Is that what you said, Sherry?
Wishing for what we have. Yeah.
I like
and
that.
I'll just tell you really, because it's such a short story, but when my son was 3, we had a birthday cake for him when he was turning 3. And, I said to him, make a wish before you blow out the candles, right? Like we say to kids. And he, he closed his little eyes and he blew them out. And I said, what did you wish for? And he said, a birthday cake. And I just have always remembered like how profound that was, and it was like instant manifestation, right? Like you want to manifest something, wish for what you have. So he wished for a birthday cake and boom. So so that's, I always tell, he's heard that story 1,000 times because I love it so much.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So Kate, let's go back to you. And how about you? What did you bring for us today?
Well, one of the exciting things that has happened with the virtual world is creating community around stories. And one of the events I did was part of Women's National Book Association. We had about 40 people just chime in to our Zoom virtual community around the theme of the pandemic, stories of the pandemic. And this is what I was hoping to create, because that is what storytelling does best. It creates a sense of connection, of common ground, of commonality. And it's centered around the heart, and it gives people a way of communicating in a story form, something that isn't just talking, but actually shapes a experience with a beginning, middle, and end, so that you can hear it, listen, remember, and be really affected by it. And so the book has a number of different prompts and themes. And what we wanted to do was have a couple of people who are in the book modeled their stories of the pandemic. And then we opened it up to everyone who was willing to share. And I came away from that virtual experience so happy. I mean, I felt this sweetness. Again, it was celebrating how people had adapted to being a family during the time of the pandemic, how they had adjusted with birthday parties or lunches or celebrations or haircuts or any number of different things, how they figured out how to eat. And all of these simple things that were everyday experiences, when they were shared in the form of a quick story, pretty well told, then we connected in a way I never expected we could. So that was amazing. And it is on my website, and you're able to view it again. But I think what I want to do with that is use storytelling more to create community and looking at different ways to do that. So it won't happen all at once. I think it's something that will, how do we include people and have them give feedback? How do we make them feel present on the screen and living participants of a common experience? And this is particularly important, I think, especially when our country is so incredibly divided. In my book, there are people who are on the right side of politics and on the left side and in the middle. And I purposely did that because I wanted to create diverse voices, and also to indicate that the tradition of storytelling is not politics, it's not religion, it's an ancient way of telling your truth. So that's a creative way of developing an old art.
Wow, I love your focus on connection. I mean, it's so obvious that's so important to you, right? Like that beautiful piece of connecting to one another. Do you, by any chance, have a story for us, since we're talking about story?
Well, some people have heard this story before, but actually in this time of my life, what I've been realizing is that, as many families are, sometimes they're fragmented, sometimes they're issues, sometimes they're painful memories and limitations. And I've really wanted to reach out to relatives who, interestingly enough, even though we're not seeing one another in person, I'm yearning for a way to communicate my love for them and the commonality that we've experienced as family. And one of the stories that we all know and is a very empowering story takes place back in Illinois, back in the old Midwest. And it's a story that, as a child, was something I experienced. And as I grew older, it became really my talisman. And it's only a very short story, and I can tell it to you. And then I hope you can respond and say, was that an empowering story? What makes it different from just talking? What is it about a storytelling that makes it different from a simple conversation? Okay, is that good?
I'm game.
All right. So it's a family story, it's true, and it's called KDF. My grandfather was a horse racer. He raced horses, but not for the big time and not even with jockeys. His sport was harness racing. A horse would pull a two-wheeled cart called a sulky with a driver. And my grandfather started racing in 1920s in the county fairs in the Midwest. My grandmother said that even when the Great Depression came and they lost so much, he would not give up his horses or the racetrack. About 1940s or so, my grandfather had named a horse for each one of his grandchildren. And the horse who was a runaway champion, the one who won all her races, was named for me, Katie F. And one summer in the late 1940s, my family went to visit my grandparents in Illinois. And my older brother and myself, he was 10, I was about 8, couldn't wait to see KDF race. And finally the day came. We went to the county fair with my grandparents, and we climbed up into the wooden grandstands on the bleacher seats. And pretty soon the race started and KDF was off. And we saw her racing around the oval, dusty racetrack, going around the bend once. And then we saw her coming back around the bend twice. And finally she came around the third time, and she was on the home stretch. And as she came closer to the grandstand, we could see she was in the lead. And we were jumping up and down, yelling, "Come on, KDF, come on, KDF." And she won. Now, after the race, I walked away from my family. I wanted to see my horse out on the county fair grounds in the stables. I knew what to look for. She had a stable sign that was bright green with gold letters, KDF. And I found her stall, and she was leaning half out of that half door. And as I came closer, I was awestruck. Her muscled body, her shining chestnut brown coat. I dare not touch her nose, but as I came closer, she looked at me, and I heard her say without a word, "You do that." And I knew what she meant. For me to win my race, to be my champion. After all, she was my namesake. And after all these years, the only thing that survived my grandfather's racing was that wooden sign. Not the trophies, the silver platters, or the loving cup, just a sign that went from place to place and house to house. KDF was our legend, the great-hearted spirit of a winner.
Wow. I love that. That was great.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what do people think? You got some great comments going on in the chat.
Yeah.
Well, that explains it.
Kate, I love the way you tell it.
You're
The
a great
build,
storyteller.
the way you build it, that makes you like, okay, we want to hear more of the story. So,
Great storyteller.
Great. Thank you. And can you see how important important that would be, first of all, to a young girl? And as I grew, that I could draw on a story that was that powerful to my identity. Yeah.
And it was so much more powerful than if you had said to us, my grandfather had this horse and it was named after me, he was a champion, and that's why I feel like I can do anything. Right? We'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, great," but this way we were just like, and I love what Sarah said. Sarah said, "I want to go buy a horse now." I love that.
And there was just so much lovely detail in there. There really rich detail, so that I felt that I was there with you. It was just, I love the way you tell stories anyway, Kate, but that was just particularly lovely. And it just,
I was going to tell one about my grandfather, but this morning I just wasn't in the mood for it. It was too sad. Even though he overcame so much, I really wanted to think about KDF these days. And also to, in my last phase of life, I really believe that it's important to pass on the stories that were generic and seminal, that were so important. And so anyway, one thing I want to say though, is that when I do workshops with people, often, especially when it was live, we would talk about the techniques that are in the book, how to make sure it has these elements, clarinet, beginning, middle, and end, narrative arc, details, sensory imagery, blah, 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 that they will get up and knock your socks off with something they just developed that minute. So that's what I'm hungry for. I want to get back to that experience. And I think we did that a little bit at the Mechanics Institute last week. What do you think, Claire?
Yes, yeah, we definitely did. I mean, it was just lovely to hear people come up with stories. I mean, one or two were a little bit odd, but it was just nice to have people, feel comfortable enough to say out loud what their stories were.
Right. And I did one that was a teleseminar with memoir writers that we had, again, about 40 people. And I noticed that when there was no visual, when people didn't have to worry about what they looked like, right, Melissa?
Yeah.
Are we looking here? Are we acceptable? Blah, blah, blah. But when they were on the phone, it was just like a huge conference call. We couldn't stop them. They were telling so many great stories about their family. So we had two different types. One was a defining story, their identity story, and another one was a family. So they had two choices. And
wow.
Again, I felt the connection. I felt this almost like a telepathic connection that, and hopefully someday we'll be live again. Maybe.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you think?
We will.
Yeah, Sarah and then Claire.
I just want to jump in and say really quick that I admire people that can vocalize a story and tell a story audibly so well like that. I think one of my biggest pet peeves as a woman is that I often feel like I start telling a story and then people talk over me. And especially when I was in college, I just graduated in May. I was in a predominantly male friend group for most of my college experience, and it used to drive me absolutely insane when I would start telling a story and then some person in the room would start talking over me because they got bored or they didn't care anymore, and I'd just be like, I just want to talk over you now so I can continue telling my story. And so I think having the power, especially as women, to command the room and to tell our story is so important. The way that you were able to just absolutely I was just drawn in right away, and I admire that so much. And I think that was just an amazing story. Really well done.
Great. And you're absolutely right. Even at the Mechanics Institute, we had it open up. Right away, it was the guys. Right away, they have something to say, man. And I really think that it's very, very important for us as women to have a presence. And this didn't happen overnight. It was gradual. And the more I began to tell stories, the more I could speak in public, the more I could grab the spotlight. And there are techniques in the book for how to do that.
Love that. Claire, did you want to say something? And then Linda?
No, I was just fingers crossed. That's what I was doing. Fingers crossed we could be in person.
All right, let's all, I love that. Linda, what did you want to join?
I just wanted to share an observation that my daughter made recently. We were in the car together on the way back to school for her, and we were listening to the Michelle Obama podcast, and it was the first one in the series, and it was her and Barack Obama together talking, and my daughter wanted to shut it off partway through because he interrupted her all the time. Every time she tried to say something, he spoke over her, and I hadn't even noticed it at first.
Wow.
And then listening for it, it was terrible. He did it all the time. And it may just be their relationship dynamic, but it was really pronounced. So even women of every stature, people will talk over them.
Wow. Well, and what's occurring to me that has to do, Melissa, with what you're doing is also the beauty of the postcard piece. I just was suddenly struck by that too, of the beauty of being able to tell our whole story and know that there's someone on the other end who is all ears, right? What a beautiful gift. I love your project, but I guess I've never seen it in exactly that light before.
Right.
Yeah, and some of the postcards are very, very personal. People get very personal. I'll just show you. This one was made by an artist. If you can see, that's one. It says the belly buttonless woman. And this is the back. Isn't it beautiful? So yeah, that's just one. I mean, they're so varied. This was created by an artist who just he's a painter and drawer. So I love receiving them, and that I feel honored that people trust me with them. That they have to release that, because I make them send them to me, or if we're in a workshop, they have to leave me the original, and everyone to let it go. But that's part of it, right? Part of it is putting it out there and then letting it go, right? So,
but also I think having that built-in audience where you feel that you're going, someone's going to see your work, someone's going to appreciate your work. And I believe we really want that so much in our culture, that it's become very impersonal and polarizing, and we really want to know that we're okay, that the friends we have that are not necessarily in our same political camp, that they're okay, that we can all identify and appreciate and hold one another. So that's exciting.
Yeah,
so I think we're trying to create those deeper connections.
Well, I want to do the next book that I've been thinking and working on a little in my mind, more than actually on paper yet, because I have it in my head, is I want to do the postcards from the children's perspective. So I want them to create a postcard and they can imagine what their life is going to be like when they're older. So they're imagining it to fruition, right? Like, it's just, I want them to create a postcard, and what do you want your life to look like when you're an adult? So I think that could be really, really interesting. And then being able to interview, I just haven't figured out, all the logistics of how to do it yet. But I just thought that could be so powerful, and especially with everything and the way the world is right now, it's scary to, the younger kids. I have a niece who's 10, and the questions she asked me about things are things I never thought about as a 10-year-old, so I think it would be really an interesting to do it under postcards.
Melisa, can I ask you a question? So your books, obviously I haven't seen it, but I think it's really interesting. So do you have a postcard, and then,
yeah, so I'll just hold one open for you so you get an idea. So, for example, this is somebody's postcard, and then their story is next to it.
Right.
Okay, so that's how I have the book laid out.
And how many postcards are there in there?
There's 30.
30, okay.
Including my story. Yeah, so there's 30.
Interesting.
And I broke the book down in life themes, about love and health and abundance and wealth. Those seem to be the 4 biggest things that we that we worry about, right? That we think about our health first, and then love and financial abundance, career, that kind of stuff. So that's how I broke it down.
Right, and that's another similarity with my book, is that it's broken down into themes, and also there are 21 contributors, different kinds of stories. Think about what kind of stories do you want to hear. Adventure stories, travel stories, stories of challenge, stories where things fall apart, family, childhood, from diverse backgrounds, things like that. And what I think is trending right now, and still is how do you brand yourself? How do you tell your signature story? I was on a talk radio show a couple weeks ago, and someone was there from HR. And she said, if you're going to go for a virtual interview right now, you better have a story. You better have a compelling, what she called career story. But in my case, I call it a signature. A signature story with ways and examples and how to do that. So it gets your message across, who you are, what you can offer, and in a way that, again, is memorable, unforgettable, where someone wants to know, how did you solve that problem?
That's so interesting because it's so similar, Kate, because in mine, each of the stories is the person's journey and their story, right? That it just, with just the visual component, you know, somebody wanted something or desired something or wanted to let go of something or create something, and then they tell the story. So it's, yeah, and you see how each person is so, their story is so unique, but the message is so universal, right? The messages are so universal, right?
Very, very true. So, Sherry, did you want me to share that dream story?
Well, you just read my mind because I was thinking, we promised people the power of stories and dreams, and I thought we better bring the dream aspect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate.
It's quick. So I know a lot of you probably are waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning these days, just sort of waking up, not wanting or able to go back to sleep, thinking about the news the day before, what might be happening, just a lot of stressful feelings. And last week when I awoke, I found that I was dreaming a story, that it was actually being told to me in my half awake sleep. And I knew the story, and it ended. I knew the ending, and I was so comforted. It was all right then. And I went back to sleep. And in the morning, I wanted to find that story again and tell it to myself and tell it over and over so I could understand why it was so comforting. What was it saying? So I'll tell you very quickly, it's a very short, ancient Chinese fable. And I believe probably everybody in China knows this story. It comes from the Han Dynasty, probably 300 BC and or 3rd century, and it's called The Old Man and the Lost Horse. So maybe when I tell this very short version of it, you can tell me, why was it comforting? Why is it relevant? The Old Man and the Horse. There once wasn't a farmer who only had one horse, and one day it ran away. And the neighbors came and they said, "Oh, we're so sorry. That's such bad news. You must be so upset." And the old man just said, "We'll see." And a few days later, the horse returned with a magnificent wild horse following. The man and his young son corralled them. And the neighbors came and they said, "Congratulations. That's such good news. You must be so happy." And the old man said, "We'll see." Now, the young man, the son, rode the horse in order to tame it, but the horse threw him and broke both his legs. And the neighbors came and they said, "We're so sorry. What bad news. You must be so upset." And the old man said, "We'll see." The country went to war, and every able-bodied young man was drafted to fight. And the war was terrible, and every able-bodied young man was killed. But the son of the farmer was spared. He wasn't drafted because of his broken legs. And the neighbors came and said, "Congratulations. What good news. You must be so happy." And the old man just said, "We'll see."
I love that story. It's so great.
Have you heard it before?
Yes, I have heard that one before. It's awesome. It's great.
It is great.
So why is that story comforting, do you think?
Rachel.
I've always, that story is actually part of what launched everything that I do now. Um,
Wow.
Yeah. Understanding that perspective of not having to judge things as good and bad, and just understand that I have a choice in perspective was so freeing to me. It was so freeing to know that just because I was once a victim, I don't have to live like a victim every day. Just because I was once, this happened to me, didn't mean that I couldn't be free to live the exact life I want to be. You know, it was just, that story was actually so impactful on my life. Is like, all my work is about perspective. And so that's the journey I try to take people on, is to see the judgments that we make, and we don't have to make them. It's a choice.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I just love that. But
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
that was so comforting to me when I first heard it, because it was freeing to know that we don't have to judge our stuff, that the stuff that we go through is good or bad. It can lead to, you know, it leads us on the journey. And that's what matters, is being in the journey.
Right. And do you see this as relevant to what's going on now?
Oh, yeah.
Erin, did you want to say something? You're muted though.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, I wish I had heard that. I'd never heard that story. I wish I had, like, 4 years ago. It would have really helped me through college. Because one of my absolute favorite quotes is, "This too shall pass." And anytime I was up at like 4 a.m. studying for a final, or, you know, in a fight with a friend, I would be like, oh my God, this is just the worst thing ever. And then I'd be like, oh, well, you know, this too shall pass, and I won't remember it, and I'll move on. And I think the thing I really love about that story, especially like as for right now, like whatever you're going through, it's just another part of like your own story and your own adventure. And you're gonna have a little bit of like the yin and the yang, and it's just part of the peaks and valleys of life. You just keep going, you have to roll with it. And I think I just love that, where you just kind of like remain unbothered. You know, you're gonna have those really great things happen to you, and people will try to tell you how to feel about them, and you're gonna have really bad things happen, but you just roll with what life gives you. And after having my senior year of college cut short, it was really devastating. But then I ended up spending 3 months in quarantine with my best friends in the world. So yin and yang, and I think you just got to roll with it. And I really love that.
Oh, Sarah. It's funny because I have a son in college, and I just told him that story last week. I love the synchronicity that's happening. But I just told him that because it is also what to me is so comforting, besides everything you guys have shared, is that sense that the story's not over. You know, it's not over yet. We don't know the end. And that's what I was trying to convey, because he was having a really hard time with something. And it's very comforting. Kate, I love that you gave us that gift.
Well, also it's really the first time a story just told itself to me in the middle of the night. So it's like that subconscious, what is going to feed me? What is going to help me tonight? And I felt the transcendent nature of it as well, that the detachment and the reality, that whatever is going on, underlying all this experience is a order, is some harmonic that will surface, that will, take place. So that's what we hope. And I just want to give a shout out to Lao Tzu, because this is one of the famous Tao fables. And one last thing I wanted to mention is that the storyteller who tells that story embraces all aspects while telling it. And that's kind of what I came to understand when I was recording it, is that the teller is the old man, but the teller is also the young man. And that too, the one who engages, who rides the wild horse, who survives the battle. And we're the neighbors too, the ones who react, who have emotions, who get upset or get depressed. We're those too. Wow. And that all of that is okay. That the whole entire world of that story is okay.
Oh, thank you, Kate.
I love that.
I'm
Osha?
really sorry. I have to go. I've actually got a meeting, but I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Oh, bye,
Very
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Bye.
Osha, did you want to share something?
Oh, I was just going to say that what my theme that's been going on throughout the pandemic has been, I'm learning to be adaptable. So I'm learning to be highly adaptable. And so that's my lesson here. And that's the wisdom here is no matter what is coming, no matter what kinds of changes are happening, what kinds of challenges are happening, it's that ability to rise up and adapt to it. And I think that we've all been doing that so beautifully. Learning new technology, like the Zoom is a technology we probably weren't using before. Expanding our abilities in so many different ways. So I think there's something in that, in a sense that it's a theme right now, because we've had to adapt and we will have to continue to adapt as the world is changing. And hopefully we can find a story that moves us enough that we can help to generate that story. A story which is of a beautiful adaptability, but also, a beautiful wisdom of listening deeply to all things, all the voices around us, animate, inanimate.
Thank you, Osha. Yeah.
Osha, that's beautiful. And
Thank you.
are a very open spirit. And thank you for being here today.
I wanted to be here. I wanted to see you, Kate.
And I think that's part of what's going on. We're isolated, but in some ways we're more connected, but in a very new way. And that's, I think, what the old man is saying too. We'll see. What are we looking for? What are we not expecting? What are we not expecting that we might actually manage to see in this new unfolding world that is the other side of that dark side that it seems we're all focused on? What is the other side? One of the things I was thinking of in the school district since I just retired, wouldn't this be a wonderful opportunity for complete integration? Because no one has to bus. There could be diversity in every Zoom classroom. Why can't we look at the opportunities in enrichment that we could provide? So that's just one idea. But I think the big, what Osha is saying is, what is the bigger story that we can embrace with the new technology?
I love that. I wanted to say, we've got about 5 minutes left, and Brenda, who isn't here right now, but she is the associate publisher of Mango, so I'm thanking her from afar. She started a little ritual, and if you guys, we might go over a minute or two, but what Brenda started, I'd love to do today, is to have everyone who wants to, you don't each have to, but before we close out our circle, to just say something that impacted you about this talk, or something you're going to take away, or an intention that you have. And it's a really lovely way for whoever wants to share to just get to close our circle by hearing from everyone. You guys game? All right. I'm going to start with Melisa, and then Melisa, after you go, you just kind of virtually pass the mic to whomever you want. And then if someone doesn't want to share, just say, pass or no, thank you.
Okay. All right. No problem. So I think that from today, the thing that I want to take that is, I want to say most impactful, I guess. I don't know if I want, but you know what I mean, like something that really resonated with me was the power of our individuality versus the connection of our collectivity. because we're all sitting here, we're all so different. We all have our own stories. We're talking about stories today, our own dreams and desires. And it's just, it's really interesting to me to see how everybody's coming from their own perspective in their own place. And we're also individual in that way, but we share so many things that it just connects us in another way. We've been talking so much about connection, and that really I kept hearing that, and what everybody was saying, that kept coming up and coming up. So that is what I am taking. And I thank you so much for having me on here today and sharing what I'm doing and my book, Postcards to the Universe. So I will pass it to my left, which is Kate.
So, yeah, I think I'm just very inspired by the synchronicity in people's response to what we've brought to them today, that it resonates to those who are here. As Sherry was saying, it seems it's always perfect. Whoever is here is meant to be.
Exactly.
And that idea we can trust that things come together. So I think that's very, very important. And, you know, the connection is a way of trusting that we are, like Sherry said, be grateful for what you already have. Be connected because we already are.
Right.
Yeah. And trust the connection. Trust that we are there at a time when people are saying we're not. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Sherry and Melisa.
Thank you, Kate. That was beautiful. Who would you like to pass the mic to, Kate?
Osha.
Okay. Well, you know, I really liked this idea of your signature story. I thought that was great. And I love the story that you told and how that shaped you. And so I was making notes here about different stories that I want to write up. And also the question of what is my compelling signature story? So I'm taking that away with me into a juicy little wonderful creative space.
I like that.
Thank you.
I may copy you on that, Osha. What is my signature story?
It'd be great to have visuals with it too. But not slides. No slides.
No.
Thank you, Osha. That was beautiful. Who would you like to pass the mic to, Osha?
Sarah.
I learned that the best inspirational stories have horses as characters. No, seriously, I just think that, like, all the different things that we shared today, just hearing from all of you, all our different perspectives, I'm very grateful to be here, but also just, I think it's so, I don't know, like, representative of the human experience, how we all have our own lives, our own things that we do, and yet we have these common emotions and these common themes in our lives that we can all relate to, especially with that last story, how not only do we all relate to it in some sense, that we could all, I guarantee, like, each of us could have said, like, that emotion, I completely have been there before. But also that there were things that I never took away from that story until someone brought it up. Like Sherry mentioning that it doesn't have an ending. I just thought that was amazing. And it's so important to talk to each other and share experiences, because that's how you grow as a person too.
Oh, that's lovely, Sarah. Who would you like to pass the mic to, Sarah?
I will pass it to Rachel.
For me, it was all about how the universe gives me exactly what I need in every moment. In every minute, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, hearing the exact things I'm supposed to hear, with the exact people I'm supposed to be with in the moment. And I just love that. I love how the universe guides me, and that I do trust the universe. And so it's like, it just gives me so much fuel to do what I do. And I am so grateful for the exact stories that were shared and to connect with all of you, because I actually was supposed to be with Melisa at an art festival in March. And I'm so excited to meet her. And so I was like really bummed, and I'm like, and God provided.
I know.
Like the universe provided me to get to spend time with you. So
thank you, Rachel. Thank you.
And it just, to me, it all aligns. Like, you know, Kate was saying, it all aligns. And I love that. So I will pass the mic to
hopefully March next year it'll happen, right?
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
So I will pass to Nita.
Thanks, Rachel. I was really glad I was able to listen in. I kind of treated it like a podcast. There was a project that was sort of all over the room I'm in. So thank you for letting me play along. I mean, I was just reminded very personally of the fact that a lot of times if I had gotten what I had wanted, it would have been a disaster. And so it's so important for me to stay right where I'm at and to, you know, practice equanimity, drop judgment, and just stay right here, because that's just been my experience. And I love the idea of the visuals with the postcards. I mean, I have heard of Melissa's book before.
Thank you.
I haven't, it's one of those ones, it's on my list, and I
Oh,
have.
good.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thanks for letting me play along in a little bit of different way. I always get so much wisdom from you folks, and just love the Hollywood Square. Bye.
Thank you.
Nina, who do you want to pass the mic to, dear?
And I always forget to pass the mic. I will pass to Linda, because she's right below me.
Linda.
It's interesting because I've been a storyteller for a really long time, first with visuals in film and video, and then with words. But there was something about today that brought this profound sense of understanding the listening part of storytelling, the mindful listening that is part of storytelling, and how we could maybe learn to listen more mindfully by listening to stories, because everyone's attention was so rapt. You weren't thinking about what you were going to say next. You were just listening. And maybe there's a way to use that to teach us to listen more mindfully. So that surprised me and delighted me in that process today. So thank you for that. And Melisa, I'm going to try the 30-day.
Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm so easy to find and get a hold of.
Okay, I will find you in a good way. Okay, thank you. I will pass it to Debbie.
Debbie, you're on. Yeah, there you go.
Every time I'm always muted. Anyway, so I was just like to thank everybody for another great Heart Wisdom panel, and this one was particularly inspiring. And I really was struck by the power of hopes and dreams and how you can manifest them into reality. So I have some things that I would like to manifest, so I will be working on that. And I also liked the signature story and how powerful that can be. And I paint in my free time, so I'm kind of thinking of ways to work in this story through abstract painting, which I'm not sure how it will turn out, but it could be interesting. So thank you.
Debbie, you should send a postcard for sure.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, anybody who wants to, please send them to me. I love getting them. As you guys were talking, I was listening, but there was such a coincidence today that horse came up, so I had to look because there's a message from horse today for some reason. So horse, the spirit guide, when a horse comes up, it's time to set your soul free. Horse is a totem animal belongs to those who jump the hurdles of life with ease. Invoke horse as your power animal when you need increased intuition.
Right.
So I said, I have to share that because today's a Pisces moon. It's very emotional, and the horse kept coming up. So I felt there was a message from horse for us today. Dr. Show.
Great.
Thank you.
Very powerful. A total.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Nice to have the horse alone.
Mary Jo, we don't know if, did you want to share? I don't know if you're muted.
Mary Jo, maybe she just wants to hang out.
She might just want to, okay, I just want to make sure you had a chance. I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, thanks for staying a little bit late. This was so beautiful. And what's occurring to me in the moment is that we're talking about story. And, you know, one of my stories from the pandemic is we started doing these heart wisdom panels right when the pandemic started. And so part of my story is the beautiful, beautiful connection and community and love that has happened every Wednesday. And I was really well aware, we've talked about gratitude, and I'm so aware of just this overflowing gratitude that in the midst of all of the loss and grief, and we've got fires and we've got politics and racism, we've got so many things, but in the midst of that, there's this circle, and that this is my story, right? Like, so this is my story of your beautiful faces and your wisdom. And it's the authors, by the way, thank you, Melissa and Kate.
Thank
It's
you.
Mango, Debbie, and Brenda. And it's all of you. We have other authors here, obviously. We've got Sarah, an intern. We've got participants coming in. It's this whole community of people who are willing to show up and to look in a different direction, right? To look in a different direction right now than all of that, and to say, you know, kind of like, you know, we're showing up for wisdom and love and heart. And so I really want to thank all of you so much. And to just let you know, we're here every Wednesday. I hope you'll come back. Thank you again to Kate and Melissa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank
And
you,
thank
Sherry.
you, Debbie, so much for putting this
Thank you,
together
everyone.
and all your hard work. I appreciate it. Thank you,
Right.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. It's
Oh,
really
you're welcome.
Mm.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.